Hey folks, JodoCast again.
I've had quite a few people inquire about this particular unit.
And in particular the mod like what I did on this one here, where I removed the support arm at the front and flushed the pin that is in the end there. As you can see, the cylinder stays nice and firmly in place and still functions perfectly. So let's see if I can show you how to do this particular mod.
And then I'll step you through the basics of how to pull that front section off and how to keep the cylinder working, etc, etc. Alright, back in a minute. Okay, so here we are, we've unboxed the Hammershot and getting ready to pull it apart so that we can have a look at the internals and see what needs to be done in order to remove this bottom arm. Alright, so next step is to remove all the screws and we'll open it up and I'll do that and I'll see you back here shortly. Voila, through the magic of television, here we are with the blaster pulled apart. Now the beauty of this thing is that the firing mechanism and everything all is self-contained and you can just lift it straight out. Okay, one thing I do have to show you before I take this out of here is this section here at the back of the cylinder. You'll see there's this ridge. Now essentially that is what holds the cylinder in the gun and stops it from moving forward out of the gun. It actually sits into a recess under here. If I can get that to focus on there. Actually, here we go. I'll try and pull this out so I can see if I can show you the recess that sits into now that you sort of know what I'm talking about. Okay, rip that off. That's one way of doing it. Oh, okay. You can see it there now. There's that lip there, and essentially that ring that's sitting up sits over that edge, and that's what holds it into the gun and holds it up against the there you go, like that is what holds it in place so that it won't move forward. So you need to be very careful, you need to keep that in place. Now if you try and pull the pin out of the front of the unit, I have seen, well I did it with one of them, but I was fortunately able to repair it, where see if you pull this pin forward, see it pulls that forward. So if you try and just pull the pin out forward, I pulled it that hard that it ended up actually breaking that ridge off, snapped it off, and the whole thing basically recessed into the back of the cylinder, which rendered it completely bloody useless. So I then had to go back and essentially rebuild that ring, which I did by pulling the thing apart and inserting a washer in there and machining it and all sorts of crap so that I actually managed to salvage the blaster and get it working again. So and it works perfectly, but it's just not the ideal way to go about it. Best thing to do would be to hold that section with pliers while you pull the pin out the front. So what I am going to do is I'm going to remove these centre posts that hold the darts, because there's no need for them, and all it does is stop you from being able to use standard streamlined darts, etc. So they're going, and yeah, that little air restrictor part will come out. Very easy to remove. All you have to do is undo these little side clips each side. The orange piece comes out, and the air restrictor assembly basically falls out. So so we'll do that. The other mod I do is compressing this spring, a bit of hot glue buffer to compress the spring a little bit more. So we'll do that as well. Just quickly show you how this orange front piece comes off and the air restrictor comes out. I've just undone those two little clips and this orange front section comes off, and that pops your spring and air restrictor. Too easy there. Okay, now I have put the little hot glue buffer in place there. I like to put a plastic plate at the bottom of it just so that the spring gets a really good seat on it. I've taken the air restrictor section out at the front there and just cleaned it up with the Stanley knife. So that section's ready to go. I'm just going to let the glue harden for a little while before I put the spring in, because I don't want it to compress too much. I want it to keep as much strength and rigidity as possible. Now we'll go on to the cylinder here and I'll show you how to or how I removed the pin and did this section. Yeah, should work. Okay. Now, I've got a plethora of pliers and what have you here. I've got a nice set of really long pointy nose pliers. Put those in, to hold that that piece in place. Lever that pin forward. Just gently lever the pin forward. And you can probably use a claw hammer to do this. There we go, so it pulls it out. This back section gives way. The ring there, as you can see, is still in place. You've got a spring that slides over here. Now this front section will pull forward, alright, and you've got this here like this. Now you can remove this front section here, release it from there, slide it back over the back of the pin. I'll keep that little one just for structural integrity. Do you need it? Is it going to interfere? Is it going to be fine? Let me check. No, it's going to be fine. Alright. Now, so slide that little orange one back up on there and go all the way up to the end. So leave that in place. Now, what we need to do is, you remember how far it protruded at the front of the gun? Essentially it was well, about the same as that orange piece there. Now what we want to do is remove that same length from this back end. So I'll just take a mark with that with my thumb. Now I used just whopping great cutters because the shaft's actually not that dense. So basically just line that up with your cutters and give it a squeeze. You can work your way around to give it an even sort of a cut rather than trying to bang it in one spot. And just weaken it up, and then there we go, that pops off. So now you've shortened that shaft. So now you can actually pop that back into place and it will drop in flush. And then you can reinsert this section at the back here. Now there's two key ways actually. Make sure that they are in the right spots so that it can actually push down into there. And then you push your back section back in, push it together, and you can give it a bit of love at the top there. Give it a tap, push that down, give it a tap, and that'll pop it back into place. So essentially, that's where we're at now. So that front section's been flushed down, and it all still fits together perfectly. It will still rotate, still hold in place, etc., etc. You got the buffer there, letting that go nice and hard before we put the spring into it, which will compress your spring, give you a little bit more oomph. Now that air restrictor's removed as well, hopefully that will allow a bit more air flow. Although it's not going to be at as high a pressure, it should give you more flow. We'll modify the front of this gun and the front of the shell, and I'll come back shortly and we'll show us putting it together. Okay, so I have trimmed the front section off the shell and relayed the parts back in here. That little lip is sitting in there quite nicely. You got the hot glue buffer there. As you'll see if I cock this back now, when your spring is compressed, it is fully compressed. So there's probably a fraction more in it, but you don't really want to go too far. The back of all the cylinders here have all been opened up. So I've taken all the posts out of there. I leave a little bit of a lip on there just so that the darts have got something to actually snug into when you pop the darts in from the front, so they don't go too far deep or too deep into the blaster. Remove that pin, opened up the front. You still got that nice lip there to catch on the inside edge here to hold it in place. So when you're putting it back together, make sure that that ridge does sit over the little lip there, as you can see. You can see it there. Alright, and okay, so now we'll pop the top shell back on. There we go. You get an idea of what it looks like. So this has been all screwed together now. I haven't actually just test fired it, but just rotate it and cock it. It's all working quite well. Definitely a much cooler look overall, with having removed that front section. So, okay, so for all those people that were inquiring on how to remove that front section and flush that pin and make it look neat, hopefully that's answered your questions, as well as how to do a couple of the other internal mods, just recapping those. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Cheers.